Hello and welcome to Social Media for Humans, the podcast that empowers you to do social differently. Your host, Alexis Bushnell, and her guests discuss their experience of social media as business owners, users, and ultimately humans, with insights and advice to help you find an effective and ethical strategy that works for you. Grab yourself a drink and join the conversation.
Hello. I am here with lovely Tigz with a fabulous headset. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, of course. Hi, I'm Tigz Rice with my fabulous headset. I am a boudoir and burlesque photographer and also specialize in branding photography as well. My pronouns are she, her, and I have been in business for 12 years now, empowering others to feel amazing and turn up for themselves in both their personal and professional lives.
Wow, 12 years. That's a long time.
It's such a long time that it sometimes I forget how long it's been, but at the same time it's just flown by. I think when you love your job as much as you do,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a challenge turning up for work each day. So yeah, it's absolutely flown.
Well, have you done this your entire working career then, or did you transition into it at some point?
Pretty much. My degree's in illustration and graphic design. So I had done that for, gosh, well, that's what I trained in. And then when I came out of university, it was 2009. It was the recession. Like getting a job was just not going to happen. So I set up in December as self-employed. And it was a case of, right, well, I'm going to have to see myself through for the next couple of years until jobs start becoming available. But at the time, I did have a camera, but I was promoting myself as an illustrator, designer, sort of mixed media artist. I wouldn't say I became an official photographer until 2011 was, I think, when it really started changing. And I didn't change my name from Tigz Rice Illustration to Tigz Rice Studios until 2013. So it was a like transition through the arts to find my comfy spot. But yeah, so within like 2 months of graduating, I was self-employed. So yeah, pretty much.
How did that sort of transition happen then? From illustration to more like empowering individuals? Why?
I mean, do you know, I think it was very much right place, right time. When I was doing my illustration degree, I literally did illustration because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do at university. And it was, okay, well, if I do illustration, when I spoke to them about it, they said you can do anything you like as long as the final thing that you present is two-dimensional. So you could work with clay and printmaking and, mixed media and sculpture, whatever you wanted, as long as you photographed it or, had something two-dimensional to work with. So I'd been doing that all the way through. And then in my final year, I just fell out of love with drawing. There was something in me just clicked. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to find something that's going to get me through my like remainder of my degree. And so I picked up a camera because that felt like the most natural thing to progress into. And I remember saying at the time, oh, I can never be a photographer. I have to work with people. And I just at the time's like, no, this isn't a career. This is just a stopgap. And turns out I really liked it. And so I was getting my friends in to model for me in a cupboard that I turned into a makeshift studio. So it had no windows, it had a bed sheet and some like really orange tungsten lamps. But it worked and came out of uni, obviously passed my degree. And the work that I've been doing with these friends slash well, mostly friends, a couple of people that were like work colleagues that had modeling experience were saying, Tigz, we really love working with you. Like, could I have a shoot with you? Like, yeah, of course, and then it just took over from there and the illustration just fell away as it just became actually, let me photograph you. And I naturally was drawn to lingerie anyway. It was something that had always been a part of me growing up. And so then the lingerie sort of worked its way in there as well. I had put myself forward for a PR company as a photographer, and I'd got the, we'll keep you on file kind of email that you kind of expect. And then the next day I got an email saying, actually, our photographer fell through for an event tonight. Can you maybe cover it for us? There's no money, like we'll pay your travel, but you know, if you fancy it. And I'm just like, well, I've got nothing else to do today. Sure. You know, like let's get some work experience in the photography industry. It turned out to be a burlesque festival. And so I turned up and was like, oh, this is where I belong. Like these are the people that I want to be with. And so I did that first evening. I managed to kind of like wriggle my way in and get myself on the press list for the whole night for the rest of the 5 days. And by the time I'd finished that, I'd networked so much that I had over 100 clients to then fill the rest of my year with. And I just ended up in this, and you know, then 12 years later, I'm still going. So there was, I didn't actively make a choice. I must have done at some point, but I just ended up here, and I love the journey that I've been on, and I'm so grateful that it did go this way. So yeah, absolutely not a choice to be here that I know of, but yeah, amazing journey.
that is a very interesting story, definitely. But now you also do like branding style shoots.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
So I've always been really interested in the business side of things anyway. Like when I was growing up, my parents ran a tea bar for a local football club. And so I was very interested in every aspect of the business, like promotion and, you know, the sales side of things. And so I think I've naturally been drawn into that side of helping other people with their businesses anyway. And it's been something I've offered for a really long time, just not very proactively. And then with lockdown, I had the time, and I had some mentoring from some amazing programs. The Hertfordshire Growth Hub had a business mentor scheme, and someone said to me, well, why don't you consider splitting them out? You know, make one the Boudioir and you know, split off and really actively offer the branding stuff. So over the last 12 months, I've been working on actually separating them out and making sure they both have as much interest on both sides. And I just love being able to help people show up for their businesses, and just bring that element of the grandeur and the vintage and the decadent that I have from the boudoir side, but package it up and allow people to have that for their businesses as well, and you know, have that empowering experience where they can be visible online and authentically themselves. So yeah, it's another thing that's kind of grown off into from all this amazing photography world that's landed around me. But yeah, the business stuff really fulfills me.
Yeah. Do you find that there are similar things that people come to you for, like confidence-wise, with both sides of the business?
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I'd say it very much is that confidence building side. So a lot of my clients actually do both. So they'll come to me for the boudoir for the personal progression, and then the branding side for like business progression as well. So a lot of them overlap, and I'm finding that clients who maybe hadn't wanted to come for the personal because of the lingerie are now coming for the business side, because they're like, actually, like, I feel more comfortable with my clothes on, but I also want that same experience of having like 2 to 3 hours focusing on myself. And you know, I want to look and feel like myself at my very best, but in a business environment. And especially in the last year, I think lockdown has really knocked a lot of us in terms of our confidence, because we haven't been around people, like we haven't had the same social interactions. And I know I've been feeling that as well. I can't speak for everyone, but just to have something that makes you feel really good about yourself, so that when you enter a room, you've got this presence that reflects and represents you as you truly are. So yeah, definitely. Like, I think confidence, it definitely is on both sides, and it's the same conversation just pitched in a different way. So whether it's to show up for yourself in your personal life and feel good about your body and, you know, own the space that you're in, and at the same time owning the space in your business, like sometimes it can feel hard to show up as your authentic self in the business world, because we all know that people buy into us rather than necessarily our branding. So yeah.
Yeah. And actually, on the sort of self-confidence and the having that sort of 3 hours for yourself, I was talking to Nolene on a previous podcast about like self-care, and I do think that actually having, even if it's a boudoir shoot or if it's just some portraits done, whether that's for business or just for you, can be a really empowering like self-care thing. And also it has the added benefit of being sort of a long-term thing that you've then got something to look back on. And if it's for your business, you've got photos that you can use, which is great. That saves you some time as well.
Absolutely. Like, you know, on one hand, you've got your social content coming, and you've also got a visual representation of yourself at every stage. And especially as your business develops into, you know, something, you know, iconic, you know, something that goes online and has history to it, and being able to say, you know, I have pictures of this stage of my career and I have pictures of this stage of my career. But also it can be so easy to get lost in your business, like either hide behind the camera, you know, on socials, just not be present. And you know, I will totally admit that I have been this person at points too, and it's just, you know, it's so easy to hide behind the client work rather than show up and say, actually, you know, the reason that my business is special is because I'm here. Like, I am my USP. And sometimes we are so busy working on other things or working like in the business that we forget to work on the business, which really is ourselves. So yeah, it's so important to have those, you know, even if it's just a few and it's, you know, once every 2 years, or, you know, like, you know, some people could do them once every quarter. I definitely sit for myself personally about once a year, but it's just such a joy to be in front of that camera and just exist. And yes, it's scary, and yes, it's trusting someone else with a camera to make you look good, but it's just so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like there is a lot of sort of overlap, because with social media, a lot of the people I work with, one of their big issues is like, I don't want to post a selfie. I don't want to be on video. I don't want to do a live. I don't want to hop on stories. I want what I do to speak for itself. And as much as I understand that, and I do think that what you actually do should stand on its own, you are still the USP, like you say, and people have to connect with you, because ultimately people are not buying the actual thing. They need to know that they like you, that they trust you, they want to work with you, and not any of the other however many people do that exact same thing. So there is such and it's such a shame, I think, because so many of the business owners who have the biggest issue showing up online, they're the people that we really need the most to be showing up online, because they're the ones who have the really like big, life-changing, society-changing businesses who are like, we've got to do this, and they're still the ones that are the most terrified of actually showing up.
Well, I cannot remember the name of the person on YouTube that I've seen a video of. It's really old. It's about sort of like 10 years old, and he draws a diagram, and it's 3 circles, and the outside one is the what we offer, and then the middle one is how we offer, and the inner one is why. And a lot of businesses go with the we offer this, and this is how we do it. But the most successful people start with the why, and the company that they use as an example is Apple, which was like You know, we challenge everything that we do. We challenge the status quo by doing this. We just happen to make great computers. I'll find it, and I'll send you the link so that you can like pin it to this.
If you find it, I will put it in the show notes.
But it truly is that, you know, the people that have that heart and soul that they pour into it have such a strong why, and it's the why that we buy into as consumers. And you're absolutely right. The more vulnerable we make our story, the more people can connect with it and then buy our service, product, whatever we're offering. And obviously, you know, you find your own comfort level on what you're willing to actually share. But, you know, just even those little hints of you or me, that's what people want to see from us. They want to know why it's so important to us to offer a service, make a product. This is needed in the industry because, and you're right. And yeah, just even, you know, post that selfie. Like, I love the like March Meet the Maker, when everyone posts their behind the scenes, and it's like, this is me, this is my workspace, this is a day in my life. I eat that stuff up. Like, I'm on everyone's page going, oh, look at your workspace.
It adds that human element, and I think this is what tends to get lost. And again, somewhat ironically, with the businesses who are the most human, is this idea that they feel like the thing they're selling has to stand on its own, and that has to be the front and center and the focus. And so the actual human component of it, their why, who they are, what they're going through, gets totally abandoned and lost in the sort of, look, I do this thing, this is a business account. And it's such a shame. But I do find that when people take part in, whether it's things like March Meet the Maker, or whether it's like just posting a bit of a random vulnerable selfie or something, or even like behind the scenes of that, like, oh, this is my desk, I've really got to clean this up today. That's when they get the response from their audience, and their audience, because it's relatable, and people are like, oh God, you're a messy person too. Oh, thank you. It's not just me with the trash desk.
Oh my God, I wish you could see my desk. It's such a mess right now.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I am clearly speaking from personal experience here.
There's everything on here. I've got my Japanese from, I do Japanese lessons at the weekend, so that's here. Like, I've got everything from like parcel stickers. Okay, so maybe today's job is tidying my desk. Take a selfie of it. Done.
Yes.
But no, you're completely right. Every time I've posted something that is either deeply personal or has a picture of me in it, it does get so much more you know, traction, I guess. People just want to connect with that. And even if you're not doing it on the always regular, but you make that little effort to turn up maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, you know, whatever your comfort level is, you'll be amazed at what, you know, no one really is there. I think there's this fear that everyone's going to jump on you and have something horrible to say, because such is the internet, that trolls exist. But actually, most people who've actively sought you out and are following you are there to support your journey anyway. They're there to find out who you are. They're invested in you because they've already hit the follow button. So, you know, you've already got that many people that are going to be behind you going, yes, like, let's help lift you up. And I think that's the main thing to remember.
Yeah. And I think with the troll thing, I do think it's important to remember that when you're showing up, you're showing up for the people for your people. You're not showing up for everybody else. And if everybody else sees it and they're like, this is rubbish, I hate this, what are you doing? It doesn't matter, because they're not your people. And that can be really hard in the moment. I'm not saying it's easy to just, whatever, I don't care about all these awful comments. But I do think it's important to remember that it's not about those people. It's about the people who you are actually able to impact, who you want to impact.
Absolutely. And the trolling doesn't last. I've had a few over the years. Nothing that I'd say is as major as like some of the big ones we hear about, but you know, it does happen. And also, I'm not going to admit that I haven't spent a whole night worrying about the one person, because, we do it. We're human. But, it goes away. And it's really important to remember that the 99.9% are there, so.
Yeah, definitely. How do you suggest then that people build their why into their images that they're using?
I think with a brand shoot, it's really important to focus on who you are. So that could be, where do you work? Like, what's important to you? Do you have a space that you work in all the time? And maybe it's shooting in that environment. So if you're a designer maker, maybe your photos are in your workspace or your studio, so we can see a little bit more of where you spend your days. Are you a vibrant, bright, shiny person with pink hair, which both of us have actually right now? So maybe we're showing maybe we're showing the vibrancy that you bring to your daily life. Do you have your brand colors? Do they resonate with you in your space? Maybe we're bringing in elements of your brand colors, or maybe your shoot has props in it that are your products, or things that are special to you, so that we can connect with those as well. Maybe there's a special place in the world that inspired you. So I don't know, let's say, for example, that you had your best idea ever and it came from a holiday or something that you still have access to. And maybe it's revisiting where that idea came from, so that then you can say in your shoot, in your socials afterwards, well, this was what inspired me and this is where it all came from, and things like that. Or, if you're a product designer, maybe it's in having pictures of your designs, your CAD drawings, some of your product packaging, like having that around you. So you're still the focus, but we have little elements in the picture that draw us all in and go, oh, okay, well, this is your studio and here are some of your final pieces, and like having them dotted around you and bringing in everything that ties you as a human to your business. So, then equally, if you've got the products with you, then your branding shoot could also have some product placement or product lifestyle shots, and then you're getting the best of both worlds, really, because you can kind of have a little bit of everything and get the most out of your time.
Yeah. I think it's easy to forget, especially that your workspace actually says a lot more about you than you realize, because we all set up our workspaces differently. And because we function differently, some people need a super clean, super organized desk, and they cannot work if there's mess. And other people have posters and stickers and pot plants and whatever all about the place. And it gives people an insight into you as a whole individual, just to see even simply your desk or your workspace or wherever it is. And I think it's really easy to forget and just think, well, everybody has a desk or everybody has a studio or whatever. That, it's just a desk. What's interesting about it? Yeah. But it tells people so much more than you realize.
Exactly. And I mean, I'll use our two examples, like, because obviously I can see your space and you can see mine right now. And you've got these two incredible mood boards behind you with like motivational messages on them. And I'm like the second that you popped up, and I'm like, you're enough. Yes, you are. But I love seeing those things behind people. And, like for me, I'm sat here and I've got an entire display of vintage cameras behind me. And it's not something that I talk about regularly. In fact, I don't think I ever really talk about my love of vintage cameras. But, if you see my space, you can see that that's clearly a part of who I am, and like my lucky cats and like my little beanie puppy that's behind me. But like, I think it's so important to see that, because there's so much that we have around us that we forget is important to mention, but it might be something else that resonates. So for example, like if you are looking for a photographer, for example, and you both bond over the vintage cameras that just happen to be on the shelf, that could really help someone resonate with you. Or I don't know what other things you might have in your studio, but let's say there's a poster on a wall of like art or a print of a specific artist. that might be your inspiration that you haven't mentioned before. And again, it's something that would maybe resonate, or your mood boards behind you. Like there's another one above your head that says stand out, don't fit in. There is. And like little things like that, like you might have like a motivational quote that you have on like somewhere around you that someone else goes, you know what, that's the thing that got me through last week. Like we'll bond over that. So yeah, I think there's so many things. And you know, even if it's like the make of your sewing machine, or you know, they want to ask a question about your is it a cricket? I never know what they call them. But you know, little things like that people might just resonate with, that you just have no idea. And even just things that you have or own or you've curated into a space could be the thing that someone really bonds with you over.
Yeah. It's connecting again on that human level, isn't it? It's seeing a little bit of who someone is and being like, oh, you love that thing too, or oh, there looks like there's a story behind that, I would be interested in hearing it. And that's what makes the connection, and that's what makes you stand out over somebody else. It's not specifically what you do, it really is you as a person. And I think to a degree that actually fuels people not showing up, because if you show up as who you are, inevitably there will be people who don't like who you are as a person, or who are pumped by that motivational quote that you use, or that poster that you've got up, or that make of sewing machine. Like there are going to be people who see that and go, I don't want to work with you because of it. And again, I think it's important to come back to like, well, then they're not your people.
Well, exactly, you know, and showing up with yourself as your true, like, vulnerable, authentic self will only help you pull out the good clients that are like your perfect match, versus everyone that might be looking for someone to help them work with their socials, or someone that wants to create photos, you know. And me showing who I am definitely helps bring in people that sit within the same emotional space or have the same values, not only those that resonate with my style of photography. And the more that I make myself available in a to an extent vulnerable place online, it has meant that these days I'm not having to say as much, I don't think we're a great fit, because I'm drawing in the right people to match my brand. And when I say brand, I mean not just my brand as a business, but my brand as a human. And I think it's important to tie those two together.
Yeah. And actually, on the point about vulnerability, I just want to say that it doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest traumas or whatever. And actually, this was something I spoke to Markle about, again, on a previous podcast, that it can be something as small as your favorite flavor of tea that connects you. It doesn't have to, like, being vulnerable and being authentic doesn't have to be ripping off the bandage on this open wound that you still haven't healed from. Like, it really can be teeny tiny things that are just an insight into who you are. So it can be the small things. You don't have to open yourself up. And I do think it's important that people have a think before they start posting stuff about where those boundaries are for them, because it's really, really easy to get caught up and to think in the moment, oh, I want to share something vulnerable. Here's this traumatic thing that just happened. I'm going to put it out there. And then a week later, or even the next day, you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to undo that.
Yes. I have very strict boundaries on family and relationships. So I'll happily talk about myself, and to an extent, like, I will talk about my relationship with my body because I feel that's important within my work. But like, my hard boundary is no talk about family. My immediate like nuclear family, they barely ever get a mention. Like, I'll put up a little post on like my wedding anniversary, but other than that, there is not a single mention of any one of them. nothing. And to me, that's my hard wall. There's probably a couple of other things, but like that's my main one. And even if people ask you, like if you do an ask me anything or like a Q&A session, it's still okay to say I'll answer everything but not that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's totally okay as well to state those boundaries. You know, sometimes they are going to be unwritten things that you don't overtly mention, but you just don't talk about them. But it is okay to do, if you are going to do, like you say, ask me anything Q&A type session, to say like, these things are off limits. I'm not happy to talk about them. And actually, I was talking to a few people in the DMs the other day, because I put up a post about my mental illness, and quite a few people felt like, because I'd posted about it, there was this feeling like, oh, I should share my own journey.
Yes.
And like, you don't have to. Like, the reason I actually put up a story about it afterwards, because I was like, you don't have to. Because the reason I talk about it is because it has been a really core part of who I am, and it does inform why I do the things I do the way I do them. And also for me, it's very much a way to make something good from it. Like, if I feel absolutely horrific, it does make me feel a bit better to say, I feel horrific, because I know other people see it. And I know those people are like, oh, it's not just me. Other people are going through it. Because I've been that person who's seen other people post it and go, oh, it's not just me. But you don't have to share your journey. If you don't want to talk about your mental illness or your mental health, and you want to share your diagnosis, but you don't want to talk about how it affects you, or you don't want to share your diagnosis, but you want to share the symptoms that you have, like, you set those rules and you set those boundaries, and it has to be what is good and healthy for you. Absolutely. So nobody else can say to you, like, you need this boundary in place, you need that boundary. You have to think, right, what am I comfortable sharing? What would I share with a friend but not want them to pass on? Right, well, that's off limits then. You've got to do that sort of initial work of like, what am I happy with putting out there?
Yeah. And you know what, it's great that if you do feel that you can share something, like I imagine that your DMs were absolutely full of people going, I resonate with this, thank you so much, I needed to hear this today. And I think that's the other thing, that people wouldn't necessarily put it openly in comments, but when you share a little something, just even a snippet, a nugget, like a sentence, you'd be amazed at how many people will just resonate with that one thing. And actually, even yesterday, someone posted something about, it was mental health based. I can't remember what it said. It was like I'll call it an inspirational quote, sort of meme, but it said something like, you know, you showing up today is enough. And it was to do with like the lockdown, because, well, as we record this, it's the 17th of May, which is the day that obviously everything's lifting in the UK a little bit. And I think a lot of us are feeling really anxious about that. And just to have someone else go, you know, I'm not feeling like my best self going into this, like it's really anxious. And like, that's how I've been feeling. So for me, it was like, again, like a DM going, thank you for sharing that. I really needed to read that today. So yeah, you'll be surprised how people, you'll touch the right people and it will strengthen a relationship for sure.
Yeah. Do you find that the boudoir shoots help people to establish their own boundaries with other people? Because I feel like a lot of that can come down to confidence and belief that you are allowed to have boundaries. So doing something like a boudoir shoot and building your confidence and being able to set those boundaries with a photographer must be kind of a good sort of practice run.
Definitely. A lot of people come to shoots for different reasons. For some, that's, you know, some people are coming to celebrate their bodies and they're already in that space. But for others, it can be, I'm not feeling so confident. And especially with for me, boudoir is such a consent laden industry in general, you know, from consent to photograph, but also being aware of how people feel in their own bodies and not overstepping that. There's a lot of unspoken consent that goes on around that as well, and trust. And so it could even be something like me saying, to what level do you feel comfortable being photographed, which then gives them the opportunity to say, I feel comfortable being photographed from these angles at this level of dress/undress in this environment, and making sure that they know that if they feel uncomfortable at any time, they have the opportunity to say stop, and I will put my camera down until they say I can pick the camera back up again. And so they're finding themselves in an environment where they have complete control at all times. And it can be little things like that where you go, oh, like I actually do have that. I do have control over everything, even though I'm not the one with the camera. And so then they see photographs of themselves and they feel incredible within them. And suddenly it lights a spark of, oh, I deserve to take up space. I deserve to exist in photos. And then just little snippets of that then just builds and builds through their daily life. And it's like, oh, well, you know, if I deserve to take up space in a photo, then I deserve to take up space in my relationship, or I deserve to take up space in my job role in this company. And I love seeing the transitions of people coming from, I don't have boundaries and I don't deserve space, through to, I do deserve space and I'm going to take over the world and I'm just going to own this little part of the universe and call it mine. And some of my clients are now on like shoot 8 or shoot 9, and just seeing their journey as they've come through, like whether it's recovering from an injury and seeing them grow and strengthen themselves, but also seeing how that goes through. Or I've got one client who shot with me in probably like year 2 of my business, who's now a West End like superstar, like just going from strength to strength. And just seeing that journey and watching them grow from, you know, barely 20 through, in fact, may not even have been 20 at the time, all the way through to like this absolute powerhouse now. I love watching people's transformation journeys, and it's my privilege to just be part of that and document that journey for them.
Yeah. I do think some of the conversation I see around like boudoir photography and selfies in general, I think just that having glamorous photos of yourself, or just photos of yourself where you clearly feel confident, or you look like you feel confident, maybe not in the moment. Some of the conversation around it is a lot of pushback about, well, it was only it's only a photo shoot, it's only a selfie, it's not real confidence, it's not real this, that, or the other, it's just it's quotes just a photo shoot. But I think people massively underestimate, well, everything really, but
well, yeah,
it only takes that sort of small thing to start a snowball effect of
exactly. And I mean, I would say it takes a lot of confidence to turn up in front of a stranger with a camera and take your clothes off. I mean, if that's not the epitome of confidence, I really don't know what is. But like it's making that decision to make yourself vulnerable. And regardless of whether that's taking your clothes off in front of a camera, maybe it's putting yourself through a TED talk and making yourself vulnerable on stage. Maybe it's showing up for yourself, and like, if you're not a confident person, it's taking that step into that networking room and standing in the center of the room and making yourself available. It's going to the restaurant alone and not sitting on your phone or taking a book, but just making eye contact with the room. It only takes one thing, whatever that thing is. It might be small to someone, but it's mighty to others.
Yeah. And you've got to know what that thing is for you. And I think it can take a lot of figuring out as well. It's not to say that you're going to sit down and think, right, what is that thing that I can do that's going to improve my confidence? But I do think you can get a feel if you know yourself.
Yes.
Because initially like where the real big challenges are. And you can go, right, I'm going to put those at the bottom of the list for now.
Mm-hmm.
What is a little bit less scary, but that I might actually be able to achieve and say to myself, yes, I did this. And I did this, and even though I was terrified.
A really great example I can give is, you know, we talk about your comfort box. So if you got a piece of paper and drew your comfort box in the middle and put yourself in it, and then mapped on it how far out of your comfort zone each thing is. So if you said having a photo shoot is like a meter out, but like being on stage doing a TED talk is like 20 meters out, and then literally go around and draw yourself little rings around them going, okay, well, these things feel the closest to my comfort zone. I'll take this step this week, and next month I'll do the next one out, and just, you know, just radiate out, because every time you hit the next one, technically your comfort level box gets bigger. And it's a really great way to visualize how you feel and what might be the next natural step. I mean, you know, if there's a big difference between, well, depending on who you are, but like, for example, holding a spider for me is probably going to be like off the page. So I'm not going to jump to let's go and have a photo shoot with a tarantula. But for example, maybe just showing up and posting a selfie with a hi, this is who I am, might be the next step. It could be the small one. And even if it's not the vulnerable, you know, this is something really deeply personal, but just, hey, like, here's my face on a day that I feel pretty okay about myself. Like, is the next thing.
Yeah. I do think there's a lot of power in posting selfies, especially if you are someone who is not a big fan of themselves. Because not only does it sort of push you out of your comfort zone a little bit, you do tend to find that you will get a lot of support. And I think that then fuels you to build the confidence yourself, because there is, as much as getting validation from other people isn't real, quote, real confidence, it can help you to build your own confidence in yourself, because it's not just about hearing other people say nice things about you. It's putting yourself out there and not having people say awful things, and be validated in, yes, I see that you're struggling and this is difficult for you, but you're awesome.
Yeah.
And it allows you to give yourself permission to go, yeah, this was hard for me, but I did it, go me. And that starts to build that confidence to then show up more and be a little bit more authentic, and to gradually figure out who you are and put that out there.
Exactly. I remember one of my friends posting, it was her first ever live store, like Instagram live. And it was only about 2 minutes long. But she'd been doing a course, and it said, you need to battle your demons and you need to go on and be live. And so the live basically consisted of, I've never been live before. I'm so out of my comfort zone. I feel really, really uncomfortable, but I'm just here and I'm just showing up, and I don't really have a lot to say, but I'm here. And it got so much interaction and so much support, and everyone jumping on. I mean, I didn't know it was happening, but I happened to see it, and I'm like, yes, queen. Yeah, you take this time. You show up for yourself. And, you know, people are going to be there and support that. And I think I just remember the first time I got called up on the first time I got called up to do a public speaking event. I had no idea that I was doing it. Someone had dropped out, and I was working for a company, and they said, oh, so and so has decided not to go on stage today, so you're going to have to take the lead. I'm like, oh, they're like, yeah, I know you haven't prepared anything that's happening in 20 minutes, but can you just go up and, you know, just show some of your work, and, you know, do a little bit of this and that. And oh my God, I was so nervous. I'm glad I only had like 20 minutes to prepare for it, because I think I would have talked myself out of it. But I went up there, it felt awful, but I did it. And then, like, you know, now I go up and present, you know, several talks a day and do loads and loads of public speaking. But just that one step, that one feel the fear and do it anyway, has helped unlock so much else. And it'll be amazing to see how that one selfie might, you know, a year later, you might be on stage, you know, giving a power hour lecture or something. Like you never know what that first step will lead you to.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's true. That's a wonderful place to leave it. Take the first step.
Absolutely.
I would like to set a little challenge for people listening as well to tell us what their first step is, so that I can check in and see, like, hey, have you taken this first step? What did you do? We want to hear about it.
Absolutely. And if you let me know as well, tag us in it and we'll go and cheer you on and be your biggest cheerleaders and give you some love.
We will. So tell us, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. If you want the boudoir, you can find me at Tigz Rice. If you want the branding, you can find me at Branding by Tigz. Please feel free to pick your poison or both. And then also I've got tigzrice.com or brandingbytigz.com, either or.
Very good. I will drop all the links in the show notes so you can find her very easily. And thank you very much for being here. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been the most amazing time.
If you want more regular reminders to find your own way to use social media, follow Alexis on your social platform of choice. All the links will be in the show notes. Until next time, be a human.